Roll call.
Knight.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Gensick.
Here.
Bontrager.
Here.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Walkley. Alt.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes. Okay, the approval of the agenda. Got a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Got a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me real quick. Okay. Alt.
Yes.
Gensick.
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Allen.
Yeah.
Bontrager.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes. Okay, next thing in line is approval of the minutes for the last two meetings. We got any additions, corrections? Motion?
Motion to accept the minutes.
You got a second?
A second.
Okay.
Okay. Who? Sherry, you seconded it?
Yeah, there was two of us, but you can pick one.
There were two of you? Okay, okay. We'll put the ladies first then. Great. We will then approve both sets at once, Nick? Okay, we're,
Might as well.
Allen?
Yeah.
Bontrager?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Gensick?
Yes.
Pavilio?
Yes.
Walkley? Gone. Knight?
I abstained since I wasn't here for him. I
Okay,
couldn't vote on him.
okay. And Nichols?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, next thing's is Mike.
Turn it
John.
over to me.
And you wanna,
Yeah, I'm going to recluse myself from this since they have been our business accountants and personal accountants for a lot of years, so I'm just going to step back.
Okay, good. Please feel free to join us.
I'm going to sit in the...
As all of you know, you've received the staff report that I prepared. Along with that, there was in it, there should be a city GIS aerial of the site. I included a few photos of the site. Two of the partners with Baird Cotter Bishop are here, so they'll be able to answer specific questions you may have on this particular addition that they're proposing. This property is zoned B2, central business. The B2 district is unique. The central business district actually allows for structures up to 90 feet in height. But there is a footnote in the what's called the Schedule of Regulations. I have no clue how long that footnote has been in our ordinance, but it specifically says the B2 district and also the B1 district that buildings in the area west of Elk Avenue between Pine Street and Chapin Street shall have a maximum height of 20 feet. That is a footnote that's in there. The neighboring properties, Huntington Bank, Parkview Lanes, McCurdy, Wotilla, they're all in the B2 district. City Hall happens to be a B1 district. It's a business district, but it is also, and then the city park across the street from Baird Cotter, that actually has a zoning classification of what's called parks and open spaces. Here is a picture of some of the surrounding businesses, the Parkview Lanes, the McCurdy, Wotilla.
No pictures.
Well, you mean I didn't turn this thing on? Okay.
That'd be nice.
We'll have that in a moment.
I was going to say, I'm looking at something different than you are then.
I'm looking at,
Hey.
this is clear as day on mine. You didn't want to see anything prior to that anyway, did you? I can go back and just show you what was there. Take me a second. Oh, we will get back there. Okay, here is a straight-on view of the Baird Cotter building. And as you can see, they've got a, they've changed it over the years. They've got covered entryways, they've got some landscaping, and in fact, years ago, I remember when they used to actually lease part of that building out to, I believe it was different financial services businesses. This is where I just described the what they're applying for. This addition may, and that's the key word, may get as high from one point of grade 31 feet 8 inches. The final architectural drawings have not been done, and they're of course waiting to have their architect and engineer do more until they have a good feel for what they can do. Again, the B2 district allows for buildings up to 90 feet in height, and at the bottom is where I quoted that footnote that is in the ordinance. Now back to where we were. This is showing the neighboring businesses, and you can see with the grade of the road, they're at different heights. The elevator that you can see in the back of the Baker Apartments. These Baker Apartments, I believe the ceiling heights are 12 foot at each level. But the top of that elevator and back, and the elevator that's on the east side towards Huntington Bank, both of those are 54 feet in height. So those elevator shafts are quite high. There's a lot of grade here. I looked at actually at architectural drawings of a development, what's called Cadillac Lofts, where the old Olson's was, and the architect was showing us that the drop in elevation from, I think it's called Shelby Street, one block down to Mitchell, there's 9 feet of drop. And it appears there's at least that much drop in topography from Mitchell Street down towards Lake Street here also. And it's also unique because the topography also slopes from north to south. So from City Hall towards Harris Street, you've got a drop there too. So you've got, from two different angles, there's a change in drop in topography. The addition, you've got drawings in front of you. The addition, as they're showing this concept, they are showing it potentially at one point being as high as 31 feet 8 inches from grade. Because of that slope, some will be slightly different also. But I want to quickly go over the review standards before we start talking some more. As we all know, that the Zoning Board of Appeals may authorize a variance from the strict application of the provisions of the ordinance where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, area of a specific piece of property at the time of enactment of the ordinance, or by reason of exceptional conditions of such property, the strict application of the regulations enacted would result in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties or exceptional undue hardship upon the owner of such property. Mike and Ryan, that's straight from the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. In reviewing this, staff, we do feel there are some interesting things. We know about a drainage problem, which the applicants have two representatives here. They can explain some of that. But they're hoping with the addition, this two-story addition, that they are expecting to be able to correct a water drainage problem they have currently in that area that is vacant behind the building, and the way it slopes into a drain that overflows. So there is a real drainage problem in the northeast corner of the building. The drainage from the new roof, it'll be designed and engineered to hopefully end the occasional flooding that they've had, seepage of water into their offices. They're hoping to redirect the drainage and correct that problem. So it is a difficulty for them. Here is a picture of that, and as I mentioned, it slopes both from north to south towards the back of the building and from east to west coming down here. And the addition they plan to do also will leave plenty of room for a sidewalk back there. So there will still be a sidewalk that'll be minimum width for handicap accessibility and so forth. There's a specific width, and I don't know how they do the grade when it's that severe, but I know it'll be of adequate width. There is enough room back there. The finding on this is a kind of a key thing, and this is where it gets into the undue hardship. Baird Cotter Bishop has grown to where I believe they have 36 employees right now on site. They've ran out of office room. They do wish to remain one of our core downtown employers, as they've been for decades and decades. It would be a hardship for them to have to separate their staff as they grow to two different sites. So truly being able to keep their employees on site together, this addition is pretty necessary for them to continue, as they have been, with the entire staff being right on site in this area. Another standard, which again is the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. The requested variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property. Staff feels this variance is not anticipated to change the supply of light and air to adjacent properties. The president of Baker College has contacted me. They do not see any issues with this. Along with that, one of the partners with McCurdy Wotilla had contacted me and told me that they certainly have no issues with this addition to their building either. Another standard, the requested variance will not unreasonably increase congestion in public streets. This variance will not have an impact, we think, on traffic volumes. Their employees, like other downtown businesses in the B2 district, they use our public parking lots, and they actually pay a parking assessment to our Downtown Development Authority, who in turn uses that money to help maintain the parking lots. Another standard, the requested variance will not increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety. We do not feel this is going to increase the danger of fire or endanger public safety. They happen to be very, very closely located next to our fire department.
Don't mean to get there on time.
I'll keep that out of the minutes. Okay. Another standard within this is the requested variance will not impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. The finding is the requested variance is not anticipated to impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. And I have mentioned this addition to, for example, our fire marshal and so forth, and nobody sees any issues of that type. Notification of the public hearing on this application was given via first-class mail to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject site, and a notice of this public hearing was put in the Cadillac News. These were provided not less than 15 days prior to the hearing date. That is, again, a requirement of the Zoning Enabling Act. I definitely heard from the president of Baker College, one of the partners of McCurdy Wotilla, and they are in favor of the project. They too want to keep them downtown. I'd mentioned I had communicated with Baker College. As far as the last part, before I get into the last thing, is staff comments. I put a staff comment for possible condition, and one thing, if this board does happen to approve it, Baker College mentioned that they have no problems with this, but if, for example, the applicant wished to expand the second floor even farther, let's say put an entire second floor on their building, which I don't know if structurally it would handle it, they would hope that it too would require, a variance and public hearing prior to something like that. So that was a condition that I would suggest, based on what the neighbors said, is, if this is granted, possibly a condition that future additions of height to that building should possibly, require a variance also. Along with that, we, in discussions with, again, some of the neighbors, particularly McCurdy Wotilla, people recognize that the employees of Baird Cotter are professionals. They do tend to have a higher income than our community's average, and they flat out spend money at our downtown restaurants, whether it be for lunch or dinner, downtown businesses, And that's part of why I think they feel doing what can be done to keep them downtown is important. One thing I wanted to mention, and City Council approved this a few years ago, there was a property swap with Baker College and the city. Baker College, when they decided to use this, wanted to try and use it as a apartment complex type facility, modern elevator and more safer entryway, etc., was required. They did not have room to put it in this location. As a result, there was a land swap with the city. So some Baker College property that's actually kind of right behind us here, they did a swap with the city, and this particular addition to their building is 54 feet high, just so you know. And lastly, based on finding of compliance or non-compliance with the standards, the board shall approve with conditions, or deny the variance application. Reasonable conditions may be attached to an approval in order to achieve compliance with the standards of the ordinance. With that, I'm going to stop talking. We have some drawings here. I can explain some of them if you have questions. I know you'll have questions, but Ryan Howell, Mike Cool, two of the partners with Baird Cotter, are here also to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mike before we go any further?
I do, Mike.
Sure.
It's my fault. I assumed, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I assumed that the asterisk that talked about west of the alley,
Yes.
Pine to Chapin, I assumed that that whole area was B2. But I'm now realizing that much of that area is not B2. It's B1, or it's the
Some is
park.
B1, parks, open spaces, exactly.
So as I'm reviewing this in my mind, I'm trying to figure out just exactly which buildings or which parcels are covered by this.
Sure.
And
That's
it
a
seems to
great-
me that it's just this little piece that starts at Baker College and ends at the bank.
That's it. That's it.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. It's a footnote in the B2 district. And I guess what I should probably do is a real quick race to my office and see what they have for the parks and open spaces, that sort of thing.
Well,
'Cause that
according
whole
to the map
block
here in
is-
front of us.
Pardon? Yeah.
It's not B2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And this is B1, and so
Yes.
the office here on the corner, those were all things that were in my thinking as being part of the B2 district, but it's not. The asterisk just simply applies to
The footnote,
About
the
4
footnote
buildings,
specifically
4 or 5
is under the
buildings.
B2.
the only portion of that that's B2,
Yeah,
yes.
and I want to actually run to my office, and it'll take me 30 seconds. I want to look up the B1 real quick. Do you have your, oh, perfect. Unless I put that together for you, I know right where to find it.
Oh, okay.
Unless he knows it.
I might have a tab on it.
There we go. Square foot, 5, let's see, that's. Yeah, the B1 is 40, so where we're at right here is 40. Parks and open spaces, it just has nothing because it's parks and open. So you're right, it's the B2. The B1 has the, that's an I, not an L. 47 of 50. Here's the L. So that footnote on the B1 is I.
Oh, so okay. So
Yeah, this is an I, not an L. That's an I, not an L.
Yes.
So you're right, just this little stretch. And Baker College is 54 feet high.
That's why they didn't need a variance?
That was all done through the Planning Commission and City Council. So I don't know, my guess is it may have involved like a special land use, something of that nature. Because, you know, they did change the use. You know, the use, of course, had never been apartments before.
And then to continue that, of the buildings that are covered, I'm guessing that the bowling alley exceeds 20 feet, and the certainly Baker does. I mean, they're grandfathered, but
Right. Yeah, they've
So
been there
we're
so
only
long.
down
They've
to-
been there so darn long. And I don't know, maybe,
It'd be close, because I know they do have that second story up there for the little teeny bit of the building.
Yeah.
and that's where the grade is kind of, you know, really factors in, because obviously the building height here is less than the building height here,
certainly.
just because of the grade.
That's
Which
what
is-
Ryan and I were looking at when we stand back here just out those doors and look at all of the buildings from the back. You see like the first floor of Baker would still be higher, more than likely. From my eyes, it looks like it would be higher than where we would be at the top of our second floor if you guys granted the variance, just because it slopes so much towards the lake.
Where's Elk Avenue?
Elk Avenue is that stretch of pavement that runs immediately behind the businesses here on Mitchell Street. It includes the alley that now runs behind, the one-way alley that goes behind Clam Lake Beer and the Elks. And that same alley extends like behind Coffee Insurance and Johnson Insurance. So that is called Elk Alley. And, you know,
I
it's,
wish you'd tell the map makers that.
pardon?
I wish you'd tell the map maker.
Okay. Yes. I'm the zoning administrator. I'm the one that said, you guys can't do this without a variance.
And I'm glad you told us, because we wouldn't have wanted to get the cart before the horse. You know, that's kind of like we figured this was the first thing. No sense of investing into a lot of expensive plans and putting it out for bid if we find out later that we can't even do it. You know what I
They
mean?
caught up with you sooner or later.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I had some staff members, when I mentioned that, said, what? Yeah, I had staff members that had no clue. No clue that that footnote was there, but, you know, that's why you're supposed to read them.
You sure that you're gonna have enough room? With that
We'll
whole
get into that
addition?
here in a second.
Oh.
Now, any more comments to Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm done.
Okay, well, we'll open up for public hearing, public comments. Please state your name and address.
My name is Mike Cool, and our office address is 134 West Harris Street, Cadillac.
I'm Ryan Howell, again, 134 West Harris.
Ready for your comments.
Well, we'd like the variance because, as Mike stated, we need to add more employees, and we're simply out of space. So that's our number one priority. We've looked at some different buildings. We looked at the building that used to be the Pregnancy Resource Center down here. You know, the big issue, like Mike mentioned, is bifurcating the office into two physical locations. I think we work good when we can just walk down the hall and talk to coworkers versus, you know, electronic communication or having to get in a car and drive. So that's number one. The idea that we've kicked around between the front and the back is that the back has a significant problem with water. we can handle, and we can get into some details if you guys have questions about how all of the water works. We can handle the water from our property, but where we run into trouble is the bowling alley and the other properties, because it's all coming downhill towards us. Because we have that carve out there, it accumulates there. And there's actually a drain in the corner, which would be to the right of where that tree is there, where the two buildings come together. Yeah, basically right in there, that collects everything. And you can see our landscape blocks that we've tried to put up to funnel whatever we can down the alley between the bowling alley and us, or to get it out into the parking lot, which the parking lot has 2 storm sewer drains at the end, each end of the parking lot, at the bottom. So that's an issue, because we've got a back door there that when it backs up, it actually goes into that door and creates a flooding situation. So we figured if we filled that in, we can still account for all of our water, but anybody else's water will go down the sidewalk that Mike talked about, or into the parking lot, into those storm drains, instead of going into our building. And then we thought, if we're going to the expense of adding on, do we just add 3 or 4 offices? What our plans are is to have 3 offices and then an open space for some cubicles on the main floor addition, which we thought, if we do that, should we at the same time just bite the bullet and do 2 stories so that we can double that space? It's a lot of money to add on, just the preliminary costs that we've thought about. And we thought, well, this would be the only thing we'd do, at least in our careers at the office. We don't anticipate any other future projects.
Yeah, it should add, probably, like Mike said, at least 7 offices plus some cubicle space. So potentially like 10 to 11 spots for additional employees in our office. So that's why we're thinking that'll, probably get our office down the road for the end of our careers anyway. But it'll help solve some flooding issues, help solve some, space issues we're having, because we've been throwing around a lot of ideas. One of the builders that's our client keeps wanting us to build somewhere else outside the city limits, but we do want to stay. We like being in the city limits. We like the presence in the downtown district. So we're just trying to think of some ideas to.
The other thing related to, I know, Mike, you'd said Baker had a concern about us doing the rest of it. One of the reasons that, and I don't know exactly all of the codes, but I think that if we tried to go any more square footage than what we're doing, we'd get into some fire codes and potentially some elevator issues. From what we understand at this preliminary point is that we can do this square that we're talking about without having to do a sprinkler system in the whole building and without having to do an elevator. So it really, in my mind, eliminates the possibility of ever being able to do a second floor on the whole thing, because it'd just be too cost prohibitive if we had to install all of those other features.
Structurally, it will handle that addition.
What we're talking about doing, yes, because there's nothing there. We're just going to go up from the ground. We're not going on top of the existing building. It's open right now. There isn't anything there. So they'd have to build it in such a way that it would handle the 2 stories.
Additions will be over the open space too?
Yes. Yeah, that little corner in the back that's 39 feet by about, what do we figure, 32 feet?
Yeah.
32 by 39, that's currently just busted up concrete. That would be gone, and that's exactly where the addition would be. We'd fill in that corner, so we'd have like a square building instead of a building that has that missing piece to the square.
Yeah.
Just missed a piece in the front then.
Yeah, and the front, we talked about doing the front, and the issue with the front is that actually used to be 2 separate buildings, 132 West Harris and then there was an open courtyard between the two buildings, and then there's 134 West Harris. So years and years ago, we filled in between the two buildings and continued to rent the 132 West Harris. Then eventually took over everything. As part of those different expansions and remodelings over the years, we have that entryway is right in the middle of the building between those two maple trees. That is our waiting room. That's where our reception area is. So if we filled that in and brought it out to the front, we would have to do so much to the inside between a new waiting room, a new reception area, because it would all be, moved out 30 feet. Where in the back, we don't think we're going to have to touch anything with the existing building, which is appealing to us because they're literally, in our minds, we think it's going to be, you guys go out there and work on building this building and we keep doing tax returns and then bust through that door and the addition's done is the concept of how it's not going to be disruptive to what we have right now, but yet solve the water issue, solve our space issue, solve some of the issues that we have.
The bowling alley right next to it, how far back does that go? I mean, it sounds like you're gonna be jotting out from what I seen. I didn't think there was 30 foot there.
Yeah, there is, because we had a survey, and there's a vacated alley that we own 6 feet of that vacated alley now. And we're not talking about going on that at all because I think there's a sewer line in there. So we're going to stay off of that vacated alley and just go up to our original property line before that alley was vacated, which would be about, I don't know, Mike, if you can flip back to that back view.
Yeah, let me go back there. Whoops.
It would be essentially, so you can see the bowling alley there.
Yeah, how
This-
far further are
we
you
come
gonna
out-
jot out?
We're gonna come out to about just maybe 1 or 2 feet into this blacktop right here.
How
So it
far?
would be further
Probably 12,
north.
10 to 12 feet probably.
10 to
back
12
there,
beyond the-
building.
Beyond the bowling alley's back side, yes.
Because that vacated alley is like right here. This starts the city parking lot right up the corner there.
And there is a gap, Carl, between the two buildings there. There is a
Right,
gap.
yeah.
And that gap, that actually property, I believe, is, when you look at the aerials, I believe it is part of the Baird Cotter property.
It is, yeah.
'Cause you had the survey
We
done.
had the survey done, yeah, I think we were originally thinking it was only like a foot or two, but we're actually, the majority of it's ours in the alleyway. We're not protruding out further than our building right now. We're not gonna kick out to the east further into the alley. We're gonna keep the east line going straight, so we're not messing with the alleys.
So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
we'll
width
still,
and all.
as far as the east side of the building, which would be the side where it gets close to the bowling alley side, where you can walk through between those two buildings, we're not gonna go closer to our lot line there. We're just gonna come north, but not east at all.
Yeah, I'm driving down that alley there in the back there. I didn't think there was 30 foot there. That's what got me confused.
Yeah, we did the survey.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, I don't know if you guys did have a chance to look at it, or we could even go out there and look at it, because it's just 100 feet away. We do have those survey stakes still in the ground. And it's kind of cold, but we could walk over there and take a look at it and answer any questions right on site if you guys wanted to. Might help visual. Well, the other thing, if we did that, by walking out this door here and looking back at it, it would give you guys that perspective of the slope, and you could visualize Baker College's first floor compared to how much lower our first floor is. And we can look at that water issue too.
That's the next question I was gonna ask, is the water issue. That storm drain there is gonna be closed off. And you say there's other storm drains there, but those are gonna have to take twice as much now or whatever.
What happens with that is, this, it's really weird that, and I'll show it to all of you guys. There is, right here in this dark area, there's a drain right there.
I seen
And that
that.
goes under, it used to go into this courtyard between the two buildings. So there's a pipe, there's a drain right here that we're gonna put the addition over. And then it goes into this, what used to be a courtyard, and then there's a pipe that comes out underneath this addition to like a bubbler, like another culvert that bubbles up and then goes into the storm drain here. But it's actually not, this makes it look like it's tied into the storm drain. It's not. It just bubbles onto the grass and then flows onto the street. And then, I'm not sure why it's that way, but.
2 different time frames.
So all of our water, this 132 West Harris, that whole roof slopes back to this open area that we want to fill in. And all of that water goes into that little hole that's like 12 inches. Underneath, between the two buildings that's now filled in, out to this, and because like Mike said, it slopes not only east to west, but north to south, this is higher than that. And so the natural leveling of the water, it all just comes right up out there and shoots right out. So if we fill this in, we're gonna put, the other thing we have to do is replace part of this roof here. And as a part of that project, we're gonna put 2 roof drains in here on the existing 132 West Harris and tie into this same drain system. But what we're thinking about doing with this area here is not draining it into the same system, draining it into the storm drains back here, potentially.
The city looks at all this also, don't they?
Every site plan and engineered plan is reviewed by our utilities director and our public works director.
Okay.
That is a part of the formal process
Yeah, but
to make sure that, yeah, they have to sign off on the.
So we don't
on
have
the
to worry
plans.
about that.
one
No.
thing, yeah, I was say, you know, we're not, this variance is not to worry about the drainage, it's strictly the height.
Right.
I mean, drain, if they don't get drained right, there's a building gonna get wet. We can't, you know, that's their problem, not ours.
But of course, more in
Mike Coy,
Yes.
I do have a question in the schedule of regulations.
Yes,
Under the maximum percent of lot area covered, there's a dash in there. Does that mean that is no,
B2, 100%.
okay. So
100%.
There's no issue.
In the
that
B2,
way.
you don't have to be set back from the lot line at all. You can cover 100% of the site, the whole thing.
Mhm.
You know, and a good example is Lakeside Title, the Cadillac 4 Theater, you know.
Mhm.
Got any questions to the applicant?
No,
If not,
you said that you think that we probably should put a condition that they don't build on the if they in the future, if they want to build onto the existing building.
Add-on.
Add-on.
Height-wise.
Right.
Height-wise. That it should come back for further review.
Then, well, it would have to anyway, wouldn't it?
I'm gonna say.
Because it'd be over.
I'm gonna say yes, because then you get into that tricky word called, are you extending a nonconformity or are you expanding a nonconformity? And without having specific details, could they extend the nonconformity? Maybe, but that would create a whole new set of issues also. You know, how can, that was the one comment that the that was made was that, they have no problem with what's proposed, but they said, boy, if down the road someone wanted to blast up, then they may have concerns again. And that was, I just threw that in there, that, this, if it's approved, it doesn't mean that, it's specifically for that area, not the entire site. It would have to come back for further review. And again, as Mike said, that would never happen, they suspect, in their careers.
Yeah,
And they're young.
My lifetime.
And they're young compared to me, so.
Yeah.
That was the only issue. They, Baker looked out the windows, and when they saw the area, it's like, this isn't really gonna affect our view. But if
So
they were to,
That's really to keep Baker happy that we put that in there just to.
yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. Because, again, let's say 50 years from now, things change, someone buys that site, and they want to bulldoze that site, and they're going to possibly say, hey, wait a minute, we've got a variance, we can fill 100% of that site with a building 31 feet 8 inches tall,
And still probably not be above Baker's first floor.
You don't have to put that in, but that was just, mind you, you do not have to put a condition in.
Okay, any more comments? If not,
Leo, did you have a?
Well, part of my thinking, I look at these and try to understand or think why this might be in the ordinance to start with. And I think it was probably for people to be able to have a view of the lake. In this instance, where you're talking about putting it well off of the street, it really doesn't interfere with the height. Whereas if you were coming right up to the curb or the sidewalk, that would be a different issue.
That would be
So
very different.
I think
That
in
would be
my
very
mind,
different.
the fact that it's back there, that makes a big difference, so.
Yeah, and a good example is, and I've been in the Baker College apartments a few times, and it is kind of neat. I mean, you look out those windows and you look, for example, towards the city park. And I mean, now with tree trimming and what we've done, they can see, the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion. They can listen to music. They can crack the windows open, and they can hear the music and see the park and the whole thing. And there are some sight lines there, but there's also a lot of trees in the back of the building too.
Well, I think that whole area, I think, is very important to Cadillac. It's a real gem. You don't find that in other cities, and I think we need to be cautious with how we approach that. But I think we're going in the right direction here.
okay, we have a motion.
I move that we approve the variance for 11 feet 8 inches in height, and that we put the condition on that any
Further expansion of the
any
second
further
level.
expansion would require another hearing.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay,
Did you say 11 or 31 feet?
I'm sorry?
Did you say 11 feet or 31 feet?
The variance is for 11 feet 8 inches.
11 above.
You're allowed
So
20.
31,
Yep.
8 in total.
Yeah, so it'd be 31 8. Thank you for
Just
checking.
checking. Don't want to walk out with just less than what we got.
Okay. Bontrager,
Yes.
Pavilio,
Yes.
Knight. Oh, recuse himself. Alt,
Yes.
Allen,
Yeah.
Genzick,
Yes.
Nichols.
yes.
Thank you for
Well,
your
have fun.
time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck. Okay.
See you at tax time.
Any comments for the board?
Not a
We'll adjourn.
problem.
No, it's another time.